This is Tina Douglas, and you're listening to the Liam Photography Podcast with your host, my husband, Liam Douglas. Enjoy!
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Liam here, and today is Christmas 2025, and I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. In today's episode 486, beware the camera tax, a new Nikon microphone, spacewalking, and more. So let's go ahead and get into our first story for this week. A little-known tax law in Mexico has the potential to trip up photographers visiting the country if they are carrying more than 2 cameras or even lenses. Many photographers have doubtless traveled to the country with more than 2 cameras and can be fined. But the nature of the law is arbitrary, and photographers who get tripped up by it feel like they have been scammed. Quote, I got stung by a customs thing here where I had an extra camera. They got me for about $350 worth of tax, Formula One photographer Kim Illman explains about his recent trip to Mexico for the Grand Prix. The money that Illman paid is not a deposit but a tax. Cabo Private Guide, a dive center based in Cabo San Lucas, explains that any extra equipment above the allotted amount is considered a temporary import regardless of the purpose. Quote, the problem arises in the arbitrary nature of enforcement, wherein some travelers with the same equipment pass through without any issues, while others are charged a hefty fee, explains Laura Tyrell. The problem is particularly acute for underwater photographers who travel to Mexico for its beautiful waters. Cabo Private Guide notes that underwater camera housing should be exempt, but it's a gray area and a customs officer may decide to charge tax on it. The tax seems to vary between 16 and 19%. In one Reddit post from 2 years ago, a Sony Alpha user said they arrived in Mexico with a Sony Alpha 7R5 and 3 lenses. A customs officer said that because the photographer had 3 lenses, 2 of them had to be taxed. Quote, they wanted to charge 19% of the cost of the lenses. We're talking a 24 to 70 2.8 GM2, a 35mm 1.4 GM, and a Sigma 85mm 1.4 DGDN, writes the Redditor. Quote, managed to talk him down to just $200, which still felt like highway robbery. But with a baby waiting after a long flight, I didn't have the energy to make my case anymore. While screening is random, Cabo Private Guide advises possible workarounds, including splitting camera gear across multiple bags, avoiding using obvious professional camera bags such as Pelican cases, and declaring the equipment as, quote, personal use. There is also something called an ATA CARnet, which is an international customs document that allows for the temporary import-export of professional gear. Mexico accepts an ATA CARnet at all entry points, so if you would rather stay 100% above board, then this is the best way to go, but it does cost money. The United States Council for International Business has appointed 2 independent CARnet service providers, Boomerang CARnets and Roanoke Trades. And I thought this was interesting. It does sound really fishy that depending on the mood of the customs agent, you might get charged the tax and you might not. I'm glad I'm not going to Mexico anytime in the near future, that's for sure. When Nikon announced the red-fueled ZR cinema camera in September, it also unveiled a companion shotgun microphone, the ME-D10. This new mic is now finally available in stores. As Nikon Rumors reports, the ME-D10 has started appearing at retailers including B&H, where customers can get their hands on the new Nikon mic for $336.95. One of the Nikon ZR standout audio features is its built-in mic is the first of its kind to support 32-bit float audio recording, like high-end external mics. While that's great and the built-in mic has its place, an external mic still promises superior overall performance, and that is where the MED10 comes in. The mic mounts directly to the ZR's digital accessory shoe or hot shoe and is powered by the camera itself. It supports 32-bit float recording, has a built-in shock mount, and offers 2 intelligent modes that users can switch between to achieve better recording quality in different environments. The quote pure mode delivers standout capture at 40 Hz to 20 Hz frequency response without any filtering, while the quote focus mode has a 90 Hz to 20 Hz frequency response that aims to pick up voices more clearly. Users can switch the mic's pickup pattern from front cardioid to rear cardioid using a switch, with a third option, omnidirectional, also available. Quote, the MED10 is a 32-bit float shotgun microphone compatible with the new digital accessory shoe developed for the ZR. It requires no battery or cable, and the adoption of a shock mount and its compact design make for easy handling, Nikon explains. Speaking of the Nikon ZR, it's also in stock now and has been for a short while. The 6K full-frame video-first hybrid camera delivers excellent performance, especially for its aggressive $2,196.95 price tag. Beyond its 32-bit flow audio recording, the ZR's other standout features include its 24-megapixel partially stacked CMOS image sensor, borrowed from the Z6 III, large 4-inch display, red color science, 6K 60p, 12-bit RAW internal recording, and much more. The Nikon MED10 compact shotgun mic from the Nikon ZR is available to order now for $336.95 and ships with a wind muff, case, and a shoe cover. So it sounds like Nikon is really starting to up their game with their audio gear to go with their newer cinema cameras. So if you do have the ZR, you might want to pick up one of these fantastic microphones to help carry you through when you are doing your cinematography. Just something to think about. Since veteran astronaut and fantastic photographer Dan Petit returned from his record-setting 5th expedition to space in April, he has been regularly sharing photos he captured aboard the ISS. His most recent one is a remarkable portrait of his fellow astronaut Sunita Suni Williams floating in space during her 9th spacewalk. The International Space Station's solar array is in the background, delivering an incredible sense of scale. Petit and Williams were joined on Expedition 7172 to the ISS by Roscosmos cosmonauts Alexei Ovitchin, Ivan Wagner, and Alexander Gorbanov, plus fellow NASA astronauts Barry E. Wilmore and Nick Hague. Expedition 72 lasted from September 23, 2024 until April 19th of this year, although the astronauts arrived in staggered waves. Wilmore and Williams were the first to arrive at the ISS on June 26, 2024. Petit arrived on September 11th alongside Ovitchin and Wagner. During his lengthy stay in space, Petit captured a lot of fantastic shots, many of which Petapixel has already featured. One of the most incredible parts of Petit's recent expedition was his collaborative project, quote, From Above and Below, with Earth-based National Geographic photographer Babek Tafrishi. The duo captured the same events from 2 very different perspectives, Tafrishi on terra firma and Petit from space. Some of Petit's photos for that project and more were captured using a custom star tracker built by RIT's Ted Kishman, who detailed his project for Petapixel. Of the many remarkable shots Petit captured during his recent cosmic adventure, his portrait of Williams is undeniably one of the most breathtaking. Seeing an astronaut floating in space is always special, but to see Williams against the backdrop of the ISS solar array is distinct and very special. Friend of Petapixel and exceptional astrophotographer Andrew McCarthy commented on Petit's portrait of Williams, quote, This photo is incredible. Really drives home the scale of that array. Quote, my crewmate, Suni Williams, on her 9th spacewalk, her extended mission time during Expedition 72 gave her the opportunity to conduct another, and she did a great job. It was a busy day, but I managed to take this pic of her next to the ISS solar array. What I think is a good visual of the size of the station, Petit himself remarked on Reddit. And it is an absolutely beautiful photograph. I highly recommend that you click on the link to this original story in today's show notes and check out his capture for yourself. Now I'm going to take a short break right here, and then I'll be right back. We hope you're enjoying this episode of the Liam Photography Podcast. You can visit the homepage for the show at liamphotographypodcast.com for show notes and links. You can post your questions, comments, or requests for future episodes at the Liam Photography Podcast Facebook group, or you can also email them to the show at liam@liamphotographypodcast.com. You can find the show on Twitter and Instagram at LiamPhotoATL. You can tweet the show, just insert the hashtag LiamPhotoPodcast. And now, back to the show. And we are back. As photographers, we often concentrate on technical perfection and the compositional layout. However, arguably more important than either of these is adding meaning to your photos. It can be challenging, but adding meaning can genuinely elevate your photos to the next tier. Photographers have adopted the methods artists use to imbue their work with meaning. The obvious way is to depict emotions. A photo of someone crying can very easily evoke feelings in the viewer. However, meaning can also come from symbolism like light and shadow representing good versus evil. Meanwhile, some photographers adopt the surrealist dreamlike imagery to explore aspects of the unconscious mind. For example, Francesca Woodman used blurred figures and confined spaces to evoke the feeling of vulnerability. For others, meaning can be found in the glory of nature or the precision of architecture. No matter the intention of the photographer, the meaning in any photograph is inferred by the viewer. That brings a problem. They might not have the experience or imagination to find any meaning, let alone the one you intended. You might create what you think is the most emotionally charged or academically challenging photograph you have ever taken. However, if the viewer lacks the mental capacity to see it, then the photo will be a simple depiction of a subject. Even if the viewer can see the meaning in your image, what they see is unlikely to be the same as you intended. Because of their unique personal life experiences, the way they view the world is inevitably different from yours. We are all influenced by a particular set of life events that mold the way we view the world. Psychologists have found that even siblings who grew up together can have very different perceptions of their family life. So we can hardly expect anyone else to share our outlook. Their mental state, belief systems, current personal circumstances, and every other factor that affects them will result in their interpretation of your photo differing from yours. In other words, even if you take an image that has meaning to you, it doesn't guarantee that the viewer will understand it in the same way that you do. The accurate depiction of a subject is what most photography tutorials teach us to achieve. We get the focus and exposure just right and apply the compositional rules we have learned, and bingo, we have a photo. As I said, at a base level, a picture is nothing more than that. It may be the photographer's intention to create such an image. Passport photos and those intended for, say, bird identification books are intentionally devoid of any meaning beyond identifying that subject. That is a deliberately shallow interpretation because we don't want to distract from the image's primary purpose. There is no challenge in the same way that can and should be found in other photos. Nevertheless, it may be crucial for you to have thousands of Instagram followers. If so, unless you are famous, talented photographer, you probably take unchallenging, easy-to-like photos that are part of popular culture. There's nothing wrong with producing content that lacks academic or psychological challenge. People find it comfortable. After all, many use their time watching soap operas, game shows, and talent contests on TV because it's effortless. Alternatively, they are quote, doom scrolling on their phones, soaking up addictive, quickly forgotten content. Popular culture exists because everyone needs to be entertained. It also plays a vital role in comforting people and distracting them from the world's woes. Just as The Masked Singer plays its part in that, so does online content, including photographs. However, some argue that TV shows and online content act like a mind-numbing drug, distracting and pacifying people when they should be working to make their world a better place. So if you want to add another layer of sophistication to your work, you might be shunning popular appeal. The content of a photo influences the meaning people get from it. For example, varying colors can evoke different feelings. Red, for instance, can represent love and passion, as well as anger and danger. Similarly, an image's layout can affect meaning as well. A photo might be tightly framed and cluttered, making it feel claustrophobic. It will project a very different meaning from one with plenty of negative space. Meanwhile, juxtaposition can reveal hidden emotions or unconscious states. Elliot Erwitt used that to inject humor and social commentary into everyday scenes, and Manuel Romo's photo found striking oppositions in subject matter such as natural versus artificial elements. Some photographic genres can convey deeper meaning more easily than others. Images of people usually tell a story that may be their personality as suggested by their facial features in a portrait or by their actions in street photography. Meanwhile, it's more difficult to give a landscape photograph a more profound meaning beyond its beauty when bathed in the glorious golden glow of morning light. That may be because a landscape itself doesn't have feelings. It's hard to emphasize with the inanimate. The meaning of photos can change over time. For example, Tim Goodall's 1929 photo, quote, in the Berggarten, Munich, features Hitler sitting in an outdoor cafe. The distaste that exists for the Nazi leader that everyone in their right mind feels now would not have been universal back then. Meanwhile, the photograph of Ernest Hemingway crouching next to the body of a leopard he had just shot and killed evokes very different feelings for many people from when it was first published. For more recent examples, Google photos of Jeffrey Epstein at a party and consider how those photos of smiling friends take on a more sinister meaning now that we have than they have a decade ago. As creative photographers, we learn to see the world in ways most people don't. Therefore, identifying our unique way of perceiving the world is crucial to giving a photo meaning. But that can mean not sticking to mainstream formulas. Sometimes being formulaic and keeping to the rules is necessary. For example, when I am commissioned to do work, my images must conform to my employer's brief. Consequently, there is little creative wiggle room for creative experimentation. Similarly, wedding photographers need to supply pictures that meet the newlyweds' expectations. Outside the professional realm, many photographers stick to fixed formula for taking photos. Familiarity is easy for others to like, but adding meaning can sometimes mean breaking away from the familiar. And as I suggested before, a photo can be much more than a simple record of a subject. However, if that subject is something that you feel strongly about, then that strength of feeling can be apparent in the image. If you care about what you shoot, you will notice and include the small things that give the photo meaning. Your emotions, whether enthusiasm, love, empathy, anger, disgust, or concern, will be reflected in your work. Conversely, if your subject holds no interest for you, others will notice it when they view your photos. Photographers whose work depicted their surroundings with passion include Tish Murtha, Sebastião Salgado, and Dorothea Lange. People can make up their own narratives about your photos, even if their stories aren't true. There is a fabulous wildlife photographer in Finland called Jari Peltomäki. He has some bird hides deep in the forest where people go to photograph golden eagles. I shared a photograph I had taken there a while ago, and an online troll immediately jumped on it. He angrily insisted that the bird had been baited to arrive there for photography, which he said was unethical. Of course, there are always those who regularly spread derision and unfounded accusations, attempting to make themselves look better at someone else's expense. Most people realize that trolls are only trying to compensate for their own inadequacies. Usually their pitiful behavior is a failed attempt to bring others down to make themselves look better. Indeed, the golden eagle was feeding on roadkill that had been removed and brought to the hides. Similarly, Jari takes the carcasses of euthanized pigs that were unfit for human consumption to feed the birds as well. But it's not a negative thing implied in the troll's rant. It is all part of a conservation project that has led to an increase in the eagle population. It has also reduced the number of these beautiful raptors being killed on the roads. Furthermore, the profits made from photographers visiting the hides are spent on thousands of bird boxes. Jari distributes them in young forests across Finland, where the trees have not yet developed holes in their trunks for birds to nest. Your actions add meaning to the photographs. Your reputation will also affect how people read meaning into them. I have not yet met a troll who could make good photos. Finally, the great Ansel Adams said, "Repeated returns are more rewarding than prolonged waiting for something to happen at a given spot." Not only must subjects change from day to day, but familiarity also improves your ability to add meaning. The likelihood of discovering the best way to shoot a subject in a way that shows meaning is dependent on how well you know your subject. Revisiting the subject repeatedly will help you to explore it and discover ways to add meaning into your photos. And I thought this was a great subject to include this week because I know a lot of photographers that do have challenges with invoking meaning or injecting meaning into their photos, so I thought it would be a good one to cover in today's episode. And hopefully after hearing this story, it'll help you come up with better ways to do that in your own photos. Just ahead of Christmas, here's an inspiring story about David Hurn, a 91-year-old photographer who has captured some of the most iconic images of the past century, including the instantly recognizable portrait of Sean Connery as James Bond. The segment was created by the British news network ITV. In the feature, Hurn discusses his career, which began in Hungary in 1956, when he documented the 1956 revolution. Despite his age, Hurn has never put down his camera, an inspiration to other photographers worldwide. Quote, "My main problem is I don't want to give up shooting pictures. I like shooting pictures," Hurn tells ITV. After a lifetime of capturing defining news moments, world-famous stars like Sean Connery and the Beatles, Hurn wondered what he could keep doing until he conked it. As he charmingly puts it, he now photographs for his local community magazine, the Titurn News. Quote, "And so I suddenly thought if I become the village photographer and I fall over, somebody who knows me will pick up," Hurn laughs. Quote, "It's as simple as that." Although it may seem like a real step down from a long career of capturing famous photos seen by people around the world, Hurn has a very different view on his latest endeavor. Quote, "As far as I'm concerned, the Beatles are, for me, no more interesting than the village feat that I'm about to go and do, Hurn says. Every month, one of Hurn's photos graces the cover of the Titurn News, delivered every month by volunteers to around 200 homes in the small Welsh village. Quote, "They don't come up to David and ask for his autograph," says Tony Hari, editor for Titurn News. "They probably ought to." Hurn recalls his lengthy career with as much humility as he approaches his work today, describing photographing Beatlemania as a terrifying experience. Quote, "I was scared stiff most of the time," Hurn says, referring to the absolute insanity of Beatles fans at the height of their popularity. Quote, "They could have killed people. They were that fanatical," end quote. Today, in addition to photographing the community magazine, Hurn offers master classes to local photographers, delivering advice built on his decades of remarkable experience in exchange for help cleaning up his yard. While photographing Beatlemania may have been terrifying at times and capturing famous portraits of celebrities was fun, Hurn is also an accomplished photojournalist who covered major news events, including tragedies. Hurn photographed the Aberfan disaster in Wales in 1966 when a colliery spoil tip, a massive pile of waste from a local coal mining operation, collapsed down a slope onto the local village. The slurry engulfed a local school and a row of homes, killing 122 children and over 24 adults. Hurn describes the event as the most challenging assignment he has ever had. Quote, "We're talking about 122 kids suffocated by crap sliding down a mountainside," Hurn says, to a trio of photographers in his home. Quote, "And when one got there, the miners, who were the parents of these children, were trying to dig their children out." End quote. Hurn says one of the more challenging parts of the job was being there when the people whose kids were killed didn't want you there. But Hurn says he knew he had to be there because events like that have to be documented. Just a decade prior, Hurn was headed to Hungary to document the Hungarian Revolution, though at the time he admits he didn't know what he was doing. He had a camera he didn't know how to use, saying he didn't even know how to load the film. But Hurn befriended a group of Life magazine photojournalists who were also there and hung around them, carefully observing and picking up the skills he needed. It set into motion an incredible career that continues to this very day. Quote, "I'm 91 and my body is fragile. You know, I've had a blissful life. As far as I'm concerned, when I die, Hurn says. Quote, "But what I feel I do have, which is enormous advantage, is that I happen to do something which leaves something behind afterwards." End quote. And I thought that was a great story to wrap up today's Christmas edition with. Hurn's photography is absolutely amazing. I've admired his work for a very long time myself, and I highly recommend that you check out his work if you have not already seen his talented photographs with such meaning and compassion. I highly recommend that you check them out for yourself.
Remember to check out the Liam Photography Podcast Facebook group. It is a private group, and you must answer a security question to join, which is the name of the host of the show, myself, Liam. And I've also opened it up to allow you to give the name of a previous guest on the show to show that you're a listener. Once you are in the group, you are free to post your own original work. Additionally, I am the admin of the Fujifilm GFX 50R group, which is the largest group for the 50R on Facebook. If you own or plan to own the 50R, you can request to join that group. You can find my work at liamphotography.net and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at liamphotoatl. If you like abandoned buildings and history, you can find my project at forgottenpiecesofgeorgia.com.
All right, that's going to wrap up episode 486 of the Liam Photography Podcast. I want to thank all of my listeners once again for subscribing, rating, and reviewing us in Apple Podcasts and anywhere else you might be getting your podcasts. If you're not currently a subscriber, why not? It doesn't cost you anything but a second of your time to smash that subscribe button, so do it now, please. And share the show out on social media and elsewhere with your photography friends and ask them to give it a subscribe and a listen. You can also find me on YouTube at the Liam Photography YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel, turn on all notifications, check out my latest videos that I post every Sunday. And also, I wanted to thank all of you who have been supporting the channel. I'm up to almost 78,000 subscribers, so hopefully I will reach my 100,000 subscriber goal by the first part of 2026, which would be definitely exciting, and we'll have another giveaway at that time. Probably something a bit more on the expensive side. We'll have to wait and see. But that is that. I will see you all again on New Year's Day.